All right, one of the responses I've gotten from my design videos is the question that if God created the world, why are there evil animals in it? Or why is there so much suffering in the created order? Um, this goes all the way back to Darwin. Darwin used the example of a parasitic wasp that would lay its eggs inside of a caterpillar, and the larva would eat, and this wasp still exists, so eats the caterpillar alive from the inside out, and the caterpillar becomes a little bit of a protective coating for these developing wasps. Some pretty gruesome stuff. You could also look at human disease as another example. But this is a little bit of a category or error because it's beyond the realm of science to speak of these things. And Dawkins certainly picks up where Darwin left off and is very critical of the God of the Old Testament, for example, judging him to be evil and petty and a number of other things. Um, but as I said, this is not a scientific argument. And I must say that the problem of suffering is probably one of the strongest arguments against a loving God. That is just the reality of the situation. I think suffering is a challenge to explain in a world created by a loving God. But there is actually a whole field of within philosophy slash theology that deals with this, and it's the topic of theodicy. And if you're interested in looking up that further, you can look into the various arguments about how a world made by a good and loving God could have evil in it. We'll leave that for another time. But since we're on this topic, the problem of evil is one for Christians to struggle with. But at the same time, the problem of evil is difficult for those who would maintain a materialistic view of the world. Let me state why. First of all, um, materialists say that the only form of knowledge ultimately is scientific knowledge because the only thing that exists is a physical world. Let me first of all say that is self-contradictory because if the only thing in the world is science and the only form of knowledge is science and the only thing there is matter, is in fact a non-scientific statement. You cannot measure it. You cannot infer it. It is basically a belief, a philosophy that undergirds atheistic views of science, but is not a scientific statement itself. So it contradicts itself. But we run into the similar problem with the problem of evil, because if matter is all that there is and we are a result of blind chance, then there is no right or wrong. There is nothing that is ultimately right or wrong because there is no good. Everything has come about by chance. And ultimately, there is no free will either because that would be an immaterial thing. And just to show an example of how this is a problem for the materialist, uh, I believe it was P.Z. Myers who said that there's no such thing as free will in one blog, and then a little while later went on a rant about someone breaking into his car. And it was pointed out to him by some of his followers that how can you get after someone for breaking into your car if they didn't actually have a choice? So you see that there's a little bit of a picture of the problem. If um, there's no such thing as anything beyond the physical world, then there's no such thing as good and bad. And therefore, the problem of evil for an atheist is the problem that why do we perceive it? Why is it so universally acknowledged that things can be evil? And it's very easy to say that evil doesn't exist, but it's virtually impossible to live as if that's the case. And so they are left with not the problem of evil, but the problem of evil. And that is a very serious problem as well. And so while they can point fingers at the theist uh, for claiming a loving God, the fingers get pointing back to them. You know the old adage, if you have one finger pointing at someone else, there's three pointing back at you. I think that's true in this case, where if they want to use the idea of good and evil as an argument against God, they're actually pointing a number of fingers back at themselves. A, they don't believe in evil. Uh, B, uh, because of that, they have no grounds for using that argument. And C, it really bothers them because they know there's such a thing as good and evil. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit of a different talk on design today, but one that I thought should be addressed because it has been brought up a number of times to me and in a lot of books and blogs, uh, atheistic blogs out there. So that's my answer. All right. Take care. Bye.